The Three Patch Pancake, like Disney level romance. Good book being like, okay, this one is my favorite. This is my favorite Emily Henry Reid. It's like, okay, I don't know how I can top this. Like, I love this. And then it just kept getting better. Welcome back, girlies. I made myself a lovely little iced latte, which is, as you can see, I am very much sad for this video today. I am sad. Today we're going to be talking all about books. I am very excited. Any chance for me to yap about books, I will in fact be sad. But anyways, as I'm filming this, it is January right now currently, and I've been wanting to film just like a little video of talking about what I read in 2025 and what I want to read in 2026. Just like a moment of highlighting some of my best reads. I'm not going to be sharing everything that I read, but I want this to be a moment of sharing my best reads because I feel like I read so many good books that I'm so excited about and I want to share with you guys. I also want to share some of my highly anticipated reads for this year. We can all reach our reading goals together. So without further said, let the book yapping begin. As you can see, I'm quite literally now sitting on my floor, so we are truly locked in. I made myself a very kind of like messy like writing. I made myself a little visual list, messy handwriting, but it works, list of some of my favorite reads from last year and then some of my most anticipated reads for this year. Before we do jump into the book talking, I do have to say one of my biggest goals of this last year was to really dive into using my library abilities, and I feel like I can 100% say that that is a goal that I really did succeed in. Literally like 90% of the books, not even 90%, maybe like, would it be a stretch saying like 97 or 98%? Because I think in total I only ended up buying like 3 books last year. A round of applause for like actually fulfilling that goal because it was a big one of mine. Put my library abilities to use, and your reminder that you should also be using your local libraries as well. All of the books that I did knock out reading were books that have been on my reading list and accumulated reads for so long, and not only did I get to read them for free, I also got to use my library, which is really cool. The 3 books that I did by myself and physically read, when I say physically read, like I physically read all of them, but I mean like I actually have like the physical copy to go on my bookshelf now. You get what I mean. The first being was The Strawberry Patch Pancake House by Lori Gilmore. I was so excited about this read. I want to say it came out maybe like early spring of last year, and I read this book I believe in March. I had just dove into Lori Gilmore the past year before with her like fall series. If you aren't familiar with this author, Lori Gilmore, I'm gonna tell you about her. She bases her books kind of off of Lorelai and Luke and Stars Hollow, like as a whole. I feel like I could definitely say that about her series. Each book kind of remind me of Stars Hollow in their own way, and what's so cool about all of her books is that every single one of them connect to each other. If that makes any sense, like each book revolves around different characters, but like in one book the characters will be in that book, and then the next book the character will be about those characters. Like if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm not explaining this very well. When I went into this read, I was thinking it was gonna be like a cutie, cozy, spring vibe read, something to get me into like the spring spirits, because like it was March when I started reading this, and I thought like the packaging was so cute. I thought the name was so cute. However, this book is about a single man trope. He finds out that he has a daughter. And his world has changed. Her mom had just died, and he's like, okay, so like I have a daughter. And they end up moving to this small town where he becomes a small town chef, and then they end up reinventing this like diner. So his world is quite literally changed. He just found out that he has a daughter that he did not even know about. And so taking on this role of also being the chef, he obviously needs someone to care for his child. So he hires a nanny, but not just a nanny, it is a live-in nanny. This is the first book that I've ever read that has the single dad trope, and it surprised me. Honestly, always been completely opposed to reading any like romance trope that like involved kids, because that's just not my cup of tea personally. I never thought that the single dad trope or anything involving children would be my cup of tea, but I did end up really enjoying this book. I think it was really sweet to be able to see connection between his daughter and then the nanny that they form. Got a live-in nanny and a single dad, so like you can guess what happens. But I think what is honestly so special about the book is not just being able to see the like connection between the two of them, but also being able to see the connection between his daughter and the nanny. That is really sweet. And it portrays Iris being the nanny. She had a backstory of being really afraid of commitment. All these scary feelings are coming up and she's afraid of commitment, so I feel like it's really sweet being able to see that unravel, and also being able to see like her mind change and just grow, and being able to see the storyline between the characters was really sweet. I added onto the list of my fave reads because it ended up really surprising me, so love a book that does that. The next thing is Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. I can't tell you how excited I've been to read this book, but when I tell you Better Than the Movies might be one of my favorite books that I've literally ever read. Definitely on the romance table. Best books I've ever read on the romance table. I feel like reading this book makes me forget that I'm reading because it's just so like consuming and just good. Disney level romance. Good. Just like sweet little like teenage romance that makes you feel like you're honestly watching like a teen coming of age movie. First book, Better Than the Movies, covers the storyline of Liz and Wes. They're both in high school, they're next door neighbors. We have the neighbor trope, we have the been in love with each other since they were kids trope, we have the enemies to lovers trope. The second book, Nothing Like the Movies, covers the setting of they've grown up now, it's been a few years, and they have broken up, so this covers the setting of a second chance romance, and they're now in college, and there's a lot. I feel like this book really covers how just like the realness of not just as high school students, but like past high school and their struggles. Talks a lot about like mental health and grief. Characters don't get together to like the literal like last 5 pages of the book, which I actually cannot stand. I did have to include this on my list of faves because I'm genuinely obsessed with the storyline of the two of these characters. It is simply just so sweet. Going into my next read, which I have to say this is probably my most anticipated read of last year. Not just this one in general, but an Emily Henry read. If you are unfamiliar with the world, Happy Place follows the setting of Harriet and Wynne. They met in college and they were together for years, and then they did end up breaking up, and they end up going on a coastal little cozy trip with their friends, but however their friends didn't know that they broke up, so they're just like, hey, we can just pretend while we're here that we're fine. I really appreciate this book because not only does it show the storyline and the love between the two of them, but it also shows some very real emotions, like situations of being in adulthood. Harriet had graduated college and she realized that the degree that she had spent like years working towards and whatnot was not what she initially wanted. I'm so glad that this was my first Emily Henry read because I remember going into this book being like, okay, this one is my favorite. This is my favorite Emily Henry read. Need I mind you, I haven't read any other Emily Henry books. This was my first one. So I was like, okay, I don't know how I can top this. Like, I love this. And then it just kept getting better. Now going into the books that I had read from borrowing from the library being like 98% of the books that I read last year. Okay, so the first one was being Joe and Laurie by the author Margaret Stoll. And it is exactly what you think it is. And I love the world of Little Women so much, and I think one of the biggest things that like always get me is the storyline between, we've got Joe and Lori and Amy. I don't feel like it's ever just Joe and Lori. It's also Joe, Lori, and Amy. Like, it's the whole world of it. I love this book so much because it's not the storyline of Little Women, but it's more emphasis on Joe and Lori as a whole, and not just like together but also as individuals. In some ways I feel like everything in the end turned out the way that it was meant to, but a part of me will also always mourn Joe and Lori. Like, don't we all? This book showed the alternate and like what it would look like if Joe actually chose Lori, and it was quite literally beautiful. If you are also too feeling that, then I think this book would be perfect for you. Okay, so the next book being Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans. My first read from Miss Jenna, and I did in fact read this book because I heard a lot of people talking about the movie on Netflix. So this is a book adaptation turned to movie, which I love. The book follows the storyline of Lena. Her mom dies of cancer, and her mom's like dying last wish was for her to go meet and live with her father in Italy. A lot of plot twists, which I love reading a romance book and like you expect it to just be romance and then it's just like, oh bam. And that's definitely what this book was. I feel like it uncovers a lot about like family and love and just like a lot of really special life lessons, and this is definitely one of those books that it's like a really refresher of diving into when it's not complete spice. This book is completely clean, which feels like such a refresh from a lot of the books today. I wanted to see it visually brought to life after I read it, and so I went onto Netflix and I turned on the movie, and probably less than 5 minutes I turned it off. So I do get what people were saying, but the book was 10 out of 10. You can catch a vibe and a theme going of, I was taking my moment of being able to say when the movies come out that I read the book. So that was me. We have a lot of book to movie adaptations, exciting things like coming out for us book girlies, and so this was my moment to really like pick up the books that I've been wanting to read that are going to be turned into movies or series that I haven't read yet. The next one was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is also my first book following the like STEM science girl storyline. I remember being like, okay, I need to just slow down and just take it in because I know I'm gonna like miss this book when it's over, and the minute I finished it I was like, I miss reading this book. The book follows a storyline of a science STEM girlie, and she is in a situation where her friend has a crush on the guy that she kind of like used to date, and she didn't want her to feel bad for being with him. She knew that they were together and she didn't want her to feel bad. She pulls the card of being like, okay, well, like, it's okay if you date him because I'm already in a relationship, and by doing that she kisses a stranger in the hallway, and they embark on this quest of trying to convince people that they're like actually together so that her best friend won't feel sorry for her and she will actually like date the guy. So we've got like the fake dating trope, we've got the enemies to lovers trope. I wouldn't say enemies to lovers because in my opinion I don't think this man ever hated her. I think I'd say it's more of like sunshine, like grumpy guy and sunshine girl trope. Okay, so the next few reads were just the Emily Henry rabbit hole of reading all of the highly anticipated Emily Henry books and entering the Emily Henry world for the first time. We have People We Meet on Vacation. I read this book in August and it took me a minute to get into. This book is one of those books that you really have to like, okay, like sit back and lock in order to like experience the fullness of it and to like truly settle into the world of Poppy and Alex. The book is, I think, about at least 400 or 500 pages long, and it quite literally takes you over the storyline of 9 years, I believe, of their summers together. And I do have to say it's quite like a thing to like get into if you're like not prepared to like go all the way back. However, once you do lock in and get in that moment and like invest in reading the storyline of the two of them, I think it is honestly so beautiful being able to see the story of the two characters. I enjoyed reading so much and learning about the two characters, not just as a whole, but as individuals. I love Poppy. So now as you're seeing this, the actual movie has came out and it's quite literally perfect, and I can't help but feel that so much of the movie is like lacking so much depth between the two characters as individuals, not just as a romantic aspect, but as individuals. I feel like I mourned. Like as a book girly, I mourned. As a movie watcher, it was perfect, but as a book girly, I mourned. We know that like as book to movie adaptations, the book will always hold more detail, but it was just so unsettling to see that literally nothing was in the movie that was in the book, that literally put so much emphasis and depth on not just on who they were like romantically, but who they were as individuals. I think that was so important. I think the movie kind of really pushed the romantic aspect, in the book isn't just a romance book. It's like the storyline of the two characters as themselves, as Poppy and as Alex, and then Poppy and Alex together. I really missed out on being able to see them as individuals in the movie, but however, if you have watched the movie and you want to dive more and learn more about them as individuals, then I deeply and heavily encourage you to read the book, because you think the movie is great, wait until you read the book. Next book was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is definitely like the settle, like sit back you need when you just want to like a good, cozy like read. There's like really nothing to it. I think the storyline follows the character, and she's from New York and she ends up going to a quiet little town like with her sister, away from the city. The male love interest being the co-worker that she now has, that she learns that she hated, ends up somehow being in the same little small quiet town because it's actually his hometown. When I said that Win was one of my favorites, I think we were just setting ourselves up truly with Win. Like it was just building, because Charlie. Then we get into Funny Story by Emily Henry, and then we have Miles. Like I said, like the levelness of book boyfriends is just goes crazy. Like amazing guys, and they're not real. Like really? I absolutely loved the concept and the storyline of Funny Stories so much. I truly enjoyed it. It was one of those books where you just keep reading and reading and reading to like get to the plot, because it's just so good. It follows the storyline of Miles and Daphne, who end up in a very unfortunate situation where Daphne's fiance leaves her for his best friend, who also happens to be Miles' current girlfriend. So can you just like imagine? So the two of them like embark in this like gotcha moment, like they left us for each other, so now we should get together, or at least convince them that we're together. They're also roommates, so truly being able to see the storyline of like the two of them, because it's such an interesting situation that they learn to find like the light in the end of the tunnel through each other, and learn to like grow together even after all the like horrible things done to them. So very excited about this. I wanted to get myself in the thriller world. I've been kind of on a journey of trying to further my genre and reading taste. I am very heavily a romance girly. I love a good romance book, but I also want to further my genre taste in reading, and so I did the thing and I read my first thriller. I've heard so many good things about Frida McFadden, and so I got to read The Housemaid for the first time. Knocked that off my list. Also another book that I was really inspired to read because of the film coming out. It was also one of those books that kept me on like the edge of my seat. This was one of the few books that I did read last year that actually made me really excited to read, if I'm being honest. Like I just remember getting off of work and just being like, I can't wait to read. And everyone needs a book like that makes you like excited to read. Follows the storyline of Nina, Millie, and roughly Andrew. And Millie is in a situation, she lives in her car, she has jail time on her name, and she needs a job. She finds this perfect, stunning, gorgeous home, and it's really sophisticated and nice and like rich and well put together lady named Nina, who actually puts a chance on her, and she ends up becoming a live-in nanny and housemaid. And as she does, she gets introduced to this room that is going to be where she's staying, and it is in the basement, and it looks like a normal room besides it being very small. But however, she notices that the door locks from the outside of the door instead of the inside. So like quite literally, when she goes in the room, she's in her room, someone could lock her from outside the door. That's the first thing that kind of sets the alarm, and the speculation that just unravels so much secrecy. And I feel like one of my favorite things about this book is that it doesn't like stop there. Like you think like, oh my gosh, but like it keeps going. So like if you are looking for like a book to simply just be and shocked by, this is going to be the one for you. Just like that, we made it through all of my favorite reads of the year. I feel like it was truly such a good reading year, and I'm so excited for all of the books that I knocked off my reading list. And I feel like I really kind of like grew like genre wise last year, so now I know that I can grow even more genre wise this year. So now let's get into my anticipated reads and books that I want to knock off my reading list this year. I feel like my main reading goal this year is kind of just to further my genre reading taste even more. First thing I have on my list is the Twilight series. We know Twilight, like I personally am one of those people. I love Twilight. I absolutely love the Twilight world. I think it's one of those things like, yes, it's bad, but that's what makes it so good. The books always do have more detail, and so I'm excited to read the books and learn more about the characters as individuals and kind of just see how the book portrays the characters as individuals in a light that the movie doesn't. So the next thing is the Hunger Games series, also another big one. I haven't watched the Hunger Games honestly since I was like in middle school, so it's definitely time for a rewatch. And also with that rewatch, I really do want to read the series. I know I specifically want to read Sunrise on the Reaping. I've heard a lot about the next movie coming out, and it does really look really interesting, and I definitely want to go see it. And so I have a lot of time to get into the books. I know specifically I want to read Sunrise on the Reaping, but however, I don't know if I need to read like all of the rest of the series as well. So if that's the case, then I do want to read the series as a whole. The next two are the only two Emily Henry reads that I believe that I haven't read yet. Beach Read, I've heard really good things about, and then as well as Great Big Beautiful Life. This just came out I think last year, and I did end up getting it at the library, and I think at the time I had so many books on like my TBR and like currently in my possession that I needed to read, and I felt overwhelmed, and I didn't know when I was going to be able to get into the book, and it felt like something that I just genuinely couldn't get myself into at the time, so I brought it back to the library. I do heavily regret not giving it a chance, but I do know now that I definitely want to dive into it and just kind of see how it goes for me. I've heard a lot of people have a bunch of different mixed feelings about the book, so I'm excited to read it for myself and then see how I feel about it. The next thing is just for the summer. I've heard a lot of good things about Abby's books, so I definitely want to read a few for myself, and I think this is one of my most anticipated books of hers. I'm really excited to read. So also going into summer books, I have the Every Summer After series by Carly Fortune. Also another moment of book adaptation turning to movie. I've seen a lot about the actors going to be playing in the series, and I'm really excited about it. I have read This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, and from what I'm seeing and hearing, that this book itself isn't a part of a series. Correct me if I'm wrong. I do know she has like a whole series lineup, and I don't know if this is something that I need to read all of them in order to understand this book, or if it's just a standalone. If you've read them personally, please let me know. The next book is We Were Liars, which I did in fact watch the series last year first, and every once in a while I'll be going around my day and then I remember it and I'm immediately sick. And I don't know why that would encourage me to read the book, but like I said, the book always has more detail than the movies, so I do want to also read the book as well. You know, personally, I just feel like if the series was gut-wrenching, I can't imagine how gut-wrenching the book is going to be, because it's going to be like having to like relive that series and like the storyline all over again. My last book is Don't Be in Love. I've heard so many good things about this writer and about these few books, so I definitely want to read this one this year. But anyways, we've kind of reached the end of my favorite books that I've read last year, and then some highly anticipated reads that I want to read this year. If anything from this video, I hope you can also get some inspiration to fulfill your reading goals. Maybe add some new books to your TBR. I think we can accomplish and tackle our reading goals together. Oh, if you thought that this vlog was over, then you were wrong. We're gonna take this as like a moment of like, this is the grand finale read. Actually dismiss the fact that I actually forgot to list one of my favorite reads of the year. It was one of the last reads of the year, so maybe that's why I forgot. But a huge shout out to Summer in the City, because this book, it's literally perfect. Takes place in New York, perfect enemies to lovers. We've got fake dating. Like, this man, imagine this is like a pitch to read the book. He literally buys her dream house and fills the house with like pictures of like memories and just like moments of the two of them. So when she enters the house, like the house is just filled with all the memories and moments of them. Yeah, that's all I need to say.